Hey guys, what's going on? We got another Mythic Plus video here, and we have Enhancement Shaman. We are doing a plus 10 Ruby Life Pools. Affixes are Fortified, Storming, and Bursting. Not the worst, but still kind of a pain in the butt. Um, we were trying to get a higher key, but all of our keys kept rolling into like Brackenhide or Azure Vault every single time, no matter what we did, which was kind of annoying. Um, but yeah, so we got a 10 and we had to find a pug just because we wanted to do a Ruby Life Pools and, just get something in this dungeon. But all our keys keep rolling into the same ones. But anyways, there's been some big news announcement coming Tuesday. Enhancement's getting a giant buff. Not, I want. Okay, in Mythic Plus, it's actually quite a big buff. Single target, it's still a decent buff in PvP as well. So if you don't know what's happening, um, they have announced that Chain Lightning is getting a 10% buff. Fire Nova is getting a 10% buff. Frost Shock is getting a 10% buff. Flame Shock is getting a 10% buff. And Crash Lightning is also getting a 10% buff. And then the other one, which is not, this one is not applied in PvP, the Primordial Wave. So when you use Primordial Wave, it sends out multiple lightning bolts. The extra lightning bolts that are being sent out are being increased by 15% only in PvE. So it's going to be 175 rather than 150. So that is quite a big buff right there. So although our uncapped AoE is still going to suck, our our 6 target and our like boss damage and stuff is getting a pretty hefty increase, because everything that is like top of our damage breakdown is getting a 10% buff, which is great. Now, we're not going to be competing with Shadow Priests or Destro Locks or Mages at all, but we will be competing, in the middle of the pack where the normal classes are. We're not going to be bottom row. And I mean, I was just checking out statistics and stuff, and it looks like we were second last in throughput at like I think it was 422k overall. Like that's the average of the enhancement shamans. Obviously, it does increase and lower based on dungeons, but the lowest is a sub rogue at 304k, and yet they haven't seen any buffs, which is very shocking to me. So I don't know what's happening with them. So if you're a sub rogue, I am I don't know how you're doing it or what's going on with your class, but the fact that you haven't been buffed is kind of shocking. I don't know. Maybe it's not that bad. I really have no idea. It just seems like something is wrong there. But anyways, so what does this mean for Enhance? Well, Enhance has... Oh, another one is we're getting a 2% maximum health buff. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's something. It's something. So when our Ankh is off cooldown, we gain 8% max health. That is going up to 10%. So it's a small buff, but I mean, it's something better than nothing, right? But yeah, anyways, for enhancement, this is going to be pretty big. We've obviously struggled in the AoE department for a while because the pulls are quite large. But with these 10%, we're actually going to see pretty well. But it could also push us really far, because I know when I am running with an Aug Evoker, and you're not doing insane pulls, but still, you keep it relative where there's like 8 or 10 targets, we're still going to be top. And then with an Aug Evoker, for some reason, like my damage just completely skyrockets past a lot of others that scale, and it's really weird. But anytime I run with an Aug Evoker, it seems like it's really good with Enhance. It's really good mix for them, because it doesn't matter when they use their cooldowns. Enhancements cooldowns are always rolling, and it's just awesome. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, so our single target is going to go up because Flame Shock got a 10%, right? And that's a huge buff because Flame Shock is a big part of enhancement, and Frost Shock is also getting buffed, as well as the Primordial Wave buff. That these are all going to be massive. The Crash Lightning buff is going to help us with a bit of the uncapped AoE. My only issue with the current buffs is that Fire Nova only got 10%. And the reason why I have an issue with that is because Fire Nova sucks. I don't know how else to put it. Fire Nova just sucks. It's honestly really weird. Now, with this buff, I am going to try out a Storm build with it because Fire Nova does do Flame Strike damage, and what that means is it deals both fire and physical type damage. So you get your Feral Spirit modifiers to buff that. So at some point, I'm going to try out a build, and I know a lot of people that play Storm, they don't like dealing with Flame Shock at all, but it might be better off with Fire Nova because of that big AoE buff. You can't really run Hailstorm with it because it just feels too awkward to get in a Frost Shock when you don't really need it, I guess. I don't know. And you're not really buffing it at all. You're getting a 5% from Witch Doctors. Or not Witch Doctors, Frost Witch. But if you could put it up to 25%, maybe, but I don't see that being worth it. I think Fire Nova might actually be worth it. Sometimes in the AoE, you do get like a little bit of downtime, but having that extra Fire Nova would really, you know, maybe put it over the edge for a little bit more AoE rather than running down the Splintered Elements tree. You would still keep your Rooted Elements. So I'll have to mess around with that and see. But I still think Fire Nova could have received a better buff. In my opinion, it's very lacking in single target, but it should excel in AoE, right? And I just don't see that at the moment. Like, it doesn't flow as well with as Hailstorm, so it's weird, but it does generate a lot of Maelstrom. Like, I think it generates 6, right? Because each Fire Nova you use, it generates 1 Maelstrom per stack, which is quite nice. Sometimes you get a little bit of downtime, but I still think it could have used a better buff. I feel like they just buffed it because they were buffing Frost Shock and they didn't want it to really fall behind. But I think they just need to uncap it in a way where... yeah, I got aggro here and I don't know why. They need to uncap it and do like beyond 5 targets deals reduced damage, you know, like something like that. I think that would be great for Fire Nova. It gives it its edge in AoE, and it's not gonna break single target, right? You're going to take that sacrifice that Hailstorm doesn't give you, where you are capped 6 targets, but you get a bit more benefit from single target. Whereas Fire Nova, you would more focus on AoE rather than single target. So I'm not sure what their plan is for Fire Nova. Obviously, I will be testing it in both builds very soon, and just to see which one is going to be better. I honestly think Hailstorm is just going to keep being the best. There's no doubt in my mind for Elementalist, but I think Fire Nova with Storm might actually be really, really good now. I know 10% doesn't sound like a whole lot, but the high damage outputs we're doing right now, I think it's going to be quite large. It's going to be a lot more than people think. So we're going to have to see that. But yeah, I'm definitely going to test that out. But as for anything else, I don't think there was any real nerfs to anything. So we're only going to go up. I don't think anybody's coming down at all. I was quite surprised because, I mean, Shadow Priest and Destro Locks are cut above the rest, right? Like, I believe I was looking at it and they're at like 650k, where everybody else is around like the 500k range, anywhere from mid 400 to mid 500k. That's where everybody is. Now, that could just be based off of how their tanks are pulling. They're maximizing the benefit of having that uncapped AoE in a sense. Although I think Shadow Priests have this weird cap interaction. I'm not sure how, but they just pump it either way. But yeah, I was quite surprised that I didn't see any form of nerfs towards those. Maybe they like where they are. I don't know. Obviously, some are supposed to be better in Mythic Plus, and some are supposed to be better in Raid. You know, that's just how the game's always been. You know, these Fury is like, let's just do Shamans for example. Elemental should have the edge in AoE in my opinion because they have Earthquake. You know, it's a great button to press and stuff like that. Whereas Enhancement's a bit more effective on the single target area because of just the way the toolkit works. I don't know. I don't know. It's just, in my opinion, some classes should be better at AoE, some classes are better at single target, or specs for that matter, and that's how it plays out. But right now, I believe Shadow Priests are like really good in both areas, and same with Warlocks. It's kind of crazy. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. Either way, I'm really excited to see how these changes play out. Uh, it's great. I know a lot of people were really giving up on Enhance, like, oh, it's so bad. We don't do any damage, you know, and it, yes and no. The damage is there. The damage has always been there. It's just the pull sizes have increased. That's basically what has happened. Is that our damage hasn't really changed from last season. Last season we were still pretty good, but by the end of it, you know, scaling and everything, we don't scale as well as other classes. So we kind of started falling behind, and then once this season hit, we didn't get any changes whatsoever. Actually, I think we got a percent buff at some point. I'm not sure. I thought we did, but maybe not. But anyways, so once these dungeons came through, the pull size increased, which benefited Warlocks and Shadow Priests and all those other classes extremely well, right? Because they have the toolkit to deal with a massive amount of mobs. Now, Storm does technically have that ability to maximize these bigger pulls. Not as well as Warlocks and Shadow Priests, obviously, but better than Elementalist, because Elementalist is very fixed on that 6 target cap, whereas Storm can push that envelope a bit more open with Alpha Wolf and Ascendants, as well as Fire Nova now maybe, and Sundering. So it'll be interesting to see. And if you are wondering why we don't take Sundering anymore, the reason is that we are generating too much. And by that, I mean our tier set allows us to use Primordial Wave very, very often, as well as Feral Spirit. So there's really no room for it in the rotation. And does that feel good? I mean, it's not bad. Sundering is still a very powerful button. If you have like I think I've said this before, if your team comp lacks crowd control, take Sundering, because it applies an incapacitate. Not only is it's still very valuable as a DPS button, especially in AoE. It brings that it's uncapped, right? It does bring a CC interrupt type of thing, where you know, you have these mobs like in No Good Offensive, you have to interrupt Rally of the Clan with some sort of knockup or stun or whatever. You can use Sundering in that way, or you can use it to interrupt casts and stuff like that. It is very, very helpful, and I would recommend it if you do have the lack of CC. And also, I haven't tried it yet, but it might actually be viable in Algathar's Academy. There are a lot of things to interrupt in there. I'll have to mess around with it and see, because then you would you might be able to drop something. I'm not exactly sure what you would drop just yet because it does feel bad to lose Elemental Assault. And if you don't know what that does, basically that's what allows your Lava Lash, Storm Strike, and Ice Strike to almost guarantee a Maelstrom generation. And that is very big in all scenarios in AoE and stuff like that. But when it comes to interrupting mechanics, especially at those high key levels, you have to make sure these things are getting off, because in Algathar's Academy you have these magic scepters where if the magic nova goes off or whatever and it's fortified weak, even at like a 15 tyrannical maybe, your group is probably all gonna die except for your tank. And it's just gonna happen. So if you have Sunder, you can almost guarantee that you can get every single mechanic that's gonna happen in these dungeons that needs some form of CC to interrupt and stuff like that. So shamans come with this amazing toolkit to deal with these sort of crowd control effects, like all of these. You have a very short interrupt. You have thunderstorm, which knocks up and interrupts everybody that is uh, vulnerable to CC effects. And then you could add sundering into that. You also have cap totem, where you could either run double cap, where as soon as cap totem goes off, it waits like a second or two and then it starts another one, so you can stun groups for a total of 7 seconds, I believe. And then you can also get it to where for each target cap totem hits up to X amount, you can reduce its cooldown, so you can bring it down to like I believe it's like a 30-second cooldown on cap totem. And then if you really want to push it even further, you could get your totemic recall or whatever, basically to reset the cooldown of your totem, your most recently used or most recently to use totems, and you could interrupt even more. Like, you have this amazing toolkit, and Elemental also has a great toolkit too with dealing with AoE effects with Earthquake. Um, if your group comp is lacking CC, bring in Elemental Shaman, because Earthquake is going to randomly knock down units while ignoring diminishing return effects. And what that allows is for things that you generally wouldn't be able to get. So like all these stone bolts going off, or the curses and stuff going off, or maybe even uninterruptible stuff like Severing Slash or things like that. You can stop those from going out just random, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Like, people will accidentally overlap and interrupt with it and stuff like that. So, it's good, and it's bad sometimes. But honestly, the way the shamans are right now is we have an extreme amount of control, and that is amazing. But people don't look at that, right? They just want to see big damage numbers. They don't think about, oh man, our team comp has no CC, how are we going to deal with all this? Well, if you bring a shaman, they're generally going to deal with everything for you. And that is one of the big parts I love about playing a shaman, because when I play my warrior, if you've seen me do keys and warrior, I feel like I'm lacking so much, right? I have shockwave and stormbolt and a melee interrupt, but like compared to my shaman, I feel like I'm useless in these groups, unable to help and interrupt stuff, and it just feels bad. But I don't know, something about being a shaman, it just feels really good being able to kind of carry in a sense with dealing with mechanics. And I don't think I'll ever turn away from that. But yeah, let me know what you think of all the buffs and stuff that are happening to Shaman. Do you think it's gonna save Shaman? I mean, it definitely will, in my opinion. We're gonna definitely see those keys go up, especially from those top players. And if you don't know, Elbero, who is, I believe, is currently the #1 enhancement shaman in the world for Mythic Plus, and maybe even like Raid 2, I don't know. Word Up might be up there too. Elbero is an amazing shaman. If you watch him and stuff like that, you'll see that Shaman has the potential to push. And he shows it. He's also been showcased in the AWC, or not AWC, the MDI, doing enhancement stuff too. I think it was season 2 that he actually played enhancement in it, and people were just like, mind blown. Mind blown. There's this enhancement shaman. He's pumping the crap out of everything. So, he's a real hero of enhancement shamans. So if you're ever wondering if shamans can do things, check him out, watch him. He's freaking amazing. He really is. It's crazy. He does damage that I wish I could do as an enhanced shaman. But yeah, don't give up on enhanced shaman. Our future's looking brighter than ever. These buffs are actually something I saw coming, but not to this extent. This is actually quite a big buff. I was expecting maybe like a 3% overall, but I don't think they want to buff our Maelstrom spenders. They want to buff our general kit. So I really like the way they did it. They focused on Mythic Plus specifically, while giving a bit of single target in there, right, with Frost Shock and Flame Shock. I think it's a really great buff. The defensive buff, it's very minimal, but I mean, it's something. And it's something for all shamans, not just enhancement, right? So, but yeah, that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching us do this Ruby Life Pools. It was a bit of a mess here at the end, but, we did it. But anyways, yeah, let me know your thoughts on the enhancement buffs. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Laters!